Well, allow me to make your day a little bit better. And it goes like this. Many of you have contacted me, privately in many cases, and said some version of this. Scott, I'm afraid the world is, or at least the United States, is coming apart. A revolution is coming, the Marxists are gaining power, there is racial strife, and everything's bad and we're all going to die. Some version of that. And I would like to give you some perspective based on the fact that I'm old. Yeah, you would think there would be not that many benefits of being old. Boy, would you be wrong. Yeah, I got to tell you, the most surprising thing about becoming my age, I'm 63 now. The most surprising thing is that while there are obvious disadvantages, and everybody would know what those are, physical, etc., there are way more advantages than you would ever imagine ahead of time. All right, you just couldn't imagine. And one of them is that I've been through this before a lot of times. This thing that looks like it's the end of the world, I've seen this a lot. But if you're younger, you haven't. Or if you just hadn't been paying attention to the news until now, you haven't. Now, why does it seem worse this time? And why does it seem so much worse? It's because the media changed its business model from telling you the facts to getting you worked up and getting you worried. So you are part of a system, social media plus the news business, which absolutely, and there's no exaggeration here, nothing I say should even be slightly hyperbolic. These are facts that are established. The left agrees, the right agrees, every researcher, everything I'm going to say is 100% agreed by everybody. All right? There will be no facts which you say, well, Scott, I'm questioning that part of your assumption. You won't. The next thing I say, you'll agree with completely. The business model of social media and of the news is different than it used to be. And it's different in the sense that they are intentionally promoting content that gets you worked up. So here's the first thing you need to know. If you can just, for a moment, do this exercise. This is a real thing. Imagine yourself in your body, right, wherever you are. You are yourself. All right? You are yourself and how you feel. And just feel that, like look around and say, all right, this is me. I'm in my body, in the world. Now do this. Take your imagination and rise out of your body and literally float above it. And just in your mind's eye, see yourself getting smaller and smaller as you get higher and higher and away from the earth. And now that you've got some distance, in your mind's eye, you're like a satellite looking down on the earth, and it's just this big ball of nonsense. And now, with a little bit of distance, ask yourself this. Do you think that your opinions about the news are objective, or do you think that you have been manipulated by the highest level of science we've ever applied to manipulating the human mind? That's what social media is. And it's what the news business becomes by testing and then retesting until they know what works and what doesn't. From the perspective of space, you can look down and you can see yourself. And now you can see yourself as part of that system. And as you see yourself from above, objectively now looking at yourself, you can see all the forces attacking you. Every time you turn on Twitter, look at Facebook, turn on the news, and you can see all those forces now. They're almost physical. You can almost see a line from those entities to you. And these lines are affecting you. They have to. You're affected by everything. You're affected by bad news, good news, events, successes, failures. You know you're affected by all of it. And now the most effective, scientifically honed, precise technology is being directed right at your brain. And you can see the lines, these lines of influence now in your imagination. They're physical now. It's not just a thought is not invisible now. Now you can see it. You see yourself, you're small, you see the lines coming in from all the forces. They're the ones that are programming you. There's something I've been saying for a while that you've heard and you understood, but you didn't really understand it until I took you to space. And you got to look down and you can actually see the lines of influence now. And here's the thing that you didn't understand before. Your opinions are assigned to you. Your opinions are not your own thoughts. Your opinions on the big stuff, the political stuff, your opinions are assigned to you. That wasn't always the case. Before, when the forces of manipulation were weak, we did not have the science to know how to do it so perfectly and so strongly. You had a little bit of freedom because you were not being controlled by external forces so much. Of course, you always had illegitimate media throughout history, but it wasn't that big a force. Maybe you didn't even think about these things too much. So here's what you need to know. There are real problems in the world, but have always been. The real problems in the world now, as enormous as you think they are actually quite small by historical perspective. As big as this is, protests across the country, coronavirus, the economy, these are real problems. Absolutely 100% real problems that are really just this big. They're some of the smallest problems in the history of humankind. You are experiencing the best of times that the media has told you are the worst. Now, when I say the best of times, I don't mean the current few months, which are difficult by any standards. Yeah, those are real problems. But they're not real problems that are real big compared to what the civilization has handled in the past. Imagine, if you will, the 60s. And young people, who were a gigantic part of the population, said revolution. I grew up in a time of revolution. When I was young, we wanted to, not me so much, but young people wanted to overthrow the government. And you had Nixon, who was a criminal. You've had Kennedy, who was assassinated, maybe by the mafia. You don't really know. There's never been a time in our history, if you include the civil rights marches, all the violence that came with that, these are way bigger problems. Way bigger problems. And the way you can test this for yourself is look at the way people are talking about them. They're not talking about solutions so much. No. They're talking about it in political terms. That's how you know these are not real problems in the way that they're being presented. They're real problems in the sense that they are problems and they should be solved. Police brutality, etc. Real problems do need to be solved. But they're not nearly as big as you think they are. And by historical perspectives, kind of easy. Kind of easy. If I were to, let's say, go to another planet, meet another civilization, and they would say, hey, tell us about your problems there on Earth, but give us sort of a historical context. And I'd say, well, you got your mass starvation throughout history and the wars and the nuclear bombs falling on people, World War I, World War II. And then the alien would say, all right, you're scaring me. Those are really some big problems. You say, are you kidding? I haven't gotten started. We got the Korean War, then we went to Vietnam for no good reason. We went to Iraq, killed 1 million people for reasons we don't know. And the alien says, man, you're getting me depressed. Fast forward to the future. Is it still that bad? Is it still that bad? And now, of course, you've been hypnotized back on Earth. So here's how you answer. Is it that bad? Are you kidding me? In 2020, it's so bad, people are destroying statues. And the alien says, well, I'm a little confused now, because you were telling me about world wars and nuclear bombs, and now you're talking about a statue being defaced. not really the same. Now, I know that some of you are saying, Scott, how naive are you? Do you not know that this is a clever plan by the Marxists? The Marxists are controlling Black Lives Matter. The Marxists are controlling Antifa. And what they're doing, you think it's just some statue stuff? Oh, Scott. What you don't realize is this is step one, a necessary plan. It's all been scripted and planned. And it goes like this. First, we will suppress your free speech. Then we will get rid of all your symbols that make you what you think you were. And once we've dismantled all of your symbolism and your hope and your free speech, then we move to the next level of control. Maybe. When was the last time something that sounded like that really happened? When was the last time anything that sounded even vaguely like that? You know what I'm talking about, right? Just sort of vaguely, sort of like that. When has that ever really played out? How about never? Are you worried about gun confiscation? We just sold the most guns that have ever been sold in the history of humankind in the last 3 months. Do you know what the biggest conversation among civilians who don't have guns is? When they're going to get their gun. I don't know anybody who doesn't have a gun who in the last 3 months didn't say, I'm going to get a gun. Nobody. I haven't heard a single person who was gunless who didn't say, I'm going to get me a gun now. Now I'm getting a gun. All right. So we are very bad at predicting where things are going to go. But the big point is things are not nearly as bad as you think.